To start this project, you're going to need to color your paper plate. I divided my plate up into sections just using my pencil, and I'm going to make a radial design, which means my design is going to be the same all the way around. Don't forget to write your name. For the next part of our weaving, we're going to follow a pattern. In the classroom, I have a paper plate to remind you that you need an odd number of cuts. As you can see, I've numbered them all the way around, and I'm going to put 11 different cut marks in the edge of my plate. I am not going to cut out an entire triangle. I am only going to cut one line. The triangle is just to guide you so you know where to cut. If you're working from home and you don't have this template, you can make your cuts using just a ruler. Each of my slots, each of my lines, is going to be about an inch apart. Make sure that you have an odd number of cuts. Now that I have an odd number of cuts, I'm ready to start weaving. You're going to need a heavy thread or a heavy string to start the warp part of our loom. A warp is the part where all the other colors will be woven into your project. It has to be strong because you're going to have a lot of yarn going over and under and over and under this piece, and if it's not strong, it's going to tear. We're going to attach a piece of tape to the back to hold our yarn in place. I haven't cut anything yet. I'm still using the entire ball of yarn. If you're working at home, you could use any color as long as it's nice and strong. If you can't give it a tug and have it tear, then it's strong enough. Uh-oh. I don't think this yellow yarn is strong enough. Let's put that off to the side. I'm going to stretch my yarn from one slot directly across the plate into the next slot. And then I'm just going to give it a tiny turn. I'm going to bring my yarn under the plate to the very next slot. We call that the next door neighbor. So it's going to come up from the very next slot, and then it has to cross through the middle and go to the neighbor of the first one. Next one up, keep going around in a circle. From one side, under the street, up into the neighbor's yard, and across the middle to the very next one. Under, across, under, and across. Now I have one slot left. I'm going to bring that last string into that last slot, and now I'm going to measure this piece of yarn so it's just about as long as my arm, and then I'm going to cut. This will give you some string to start your weaving. Start in either direction. You can go to the right or you can go to the left, but you have to follow the pattern. And in the beginning, it's going to be a little confusing until we start getting this yarn woven up into the center. So I'm going to use our traditional weaving pattern. Over, under, over, under, and then I'm going to pull. Over, under, over, under, and pull. You can see how it's starting to take up around the center. Over, under, pull. It will start to create a nice even center for you, kind of like a bicycle wheel. Over, under, pull. Make sure that you only work 4 strings at a time. Over, under, pull. You want to pull all of that slack every time so you don't get an extra tangle where you don't want it. I'm going to continue until I run out of string. When it's time to change color, we're going to let that previous yarn play peekaboo, which means I'm just going to tuck it underneath. I don't want to worry about tying knots anywhere. Tying knots can sometimes be tricky. You can use any color you want for the next part. There are a lot of cut pieces of yarn that we're going to be using at each table. Because it's all been cut already, it's easy to find the color that you like and pull it right out of the pile. We need a piece of yarn that is about the size of your arm. Hold it in your hand, measure all the way up to your shoulder, and then cut with the scissors. To start, I'm going to try and remember where I left off. It looks like this yarn was an under. So my next piece should probably start over. I'm going to go over the next one, over, under, and then I'm going to pull. But because this one isn't connected, I don't want to pull too hard. He's going to play peekaboo with his friend underneath the weaving. Over, under, pull. But don't put too hard. He's still playing peekaboo. Over, under, pull. When you get around and it meets up with its tail, then it gets a little more sturdy and you don't have to worry about it pulling out. When you're weaving, you want to be careful not to stretch these strings too much. I'm going to keep going until I fill in the entire center of this paper plate, changing colors as I'd like.